Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Mangum Talks TV. This is a Mangum Talks podcast dedicated to breaking down each and every episode of quality television. Right now we are on the Amazon series, the video game adaptation Fallout. We are on episode 5. I'm your host Lee. I'm joined by my co-host Spencer. Spencer, how are we doing today?
I am of my most mixed feelings yet when it comes to the show, and that is no statement about the quality of the show. I thought the episode was solid. I thought it was a good episode. Particularly the vault-focused stuff has been great and interesting, and it's a building mystery. I'll be curious to see where they explore with it. But for reasons that I'm happy to go into if you like to, this is the one episode of where I am emotionally mixed on it.
I as well documented on this podcast, I rarely get proactive communication from Spencer. It's
Never.
I mean, it's pretty rare. It's like somebody dies maybe, or, if we have a plan, maybe if he has to bail on it. That's about the only proactive communication. Spencer texts me multiple texts to say, I'm unhappy with this episode. I need some space on the podcast to talk about it. Can I get like 10 minutes at the front? I said, sir, absolutely you can. I will clear the fuck out of the way. And I'll be very excited to do so. Before we do that, let's do a little housekeeping. So it's as established, as talked about at the onset in the introduction. This is a Mangum Talks podcast. You can find all of our stuff at mangumtalks.com. Go on to your favorite podcast provider, typing in Mangum Talks. And if you're enjoying this podcast, you're enjoying our coverage of Shogun, Fallout, House of the Dragon, all the different stuff that Spencer and I like to dive into each week, break down line by line. If you're enjoying that, if you could just give us a subscribe, give us a rating. The reason that matters to us is not because we have bukus of advertisements. You will not hear an advertisement on this podcast. It is so that Spencer and I can know people are listening, enjoy it. It makes our day. It just makes us happy. So if you do that, that would be really great. The other thing I'd like to talk about here on the podcast is our YouTube channel, our fledgling, our starter YouTube. You know what this is? Daenerys just walked out of the fire, and we have little Drogon is that is our YouTube channel. It just emerged from the fire. We've got 2 videos uploaded, a third on the way. Here's how I can tease the YouTube video. You ready for it, Spencer? Go to our YouTube page if you would like to hear Spencer and I talk about Shogun getting renewed for a season 2 and potentially season 3. We recorded our thoughts about that. We are putting that exclusively on our YouTube page. So if you want to hear Spencer and I talk about what we think of FX, I would say stretching, going beyond the source material for a season 2, potentially a season 3, that's on our YouTube channel. YouTube channel, of course, is named Mangum Talks. All right, Spencer, I think that is all of the housekeeping. We thank you all for listening. I am going to sit down right now. I'm going to sit back on the bleachers.
Don't go away. I'm going to involve you in this.
Oh, no, I still got my microphone, but I'm going to sit back. Spencer, what did you think of this episode?
All right. Again, the episode itself, I thought was a solid episode of television. Like the vault stuff most, the rest of it was good. I got no issue there. The hint of where I have it's more of an emotional me problem. It's coming in as not a huge fan of Fallout, but someone who has enjoyed the series quite a bit, particularly the original games. I sent you a Planet of the Apes meme of, you bastards, you blew it up.
You sure did.
Did that give you a hint after you watched the episode what I may have had a bit of an issue with about this episode?
To be honest with you, I am not 100% sure what you have a problem with.
There is a town. The remainders of a town. A hole where a town was that you get to meet in this episode. A town that was once called Shady Sands. Ringing a bell from this episode?
I do remember that.
Shady Sands is a big part of the Fallout lore. It's a big part of the Fallout series. I mean, I've been raising questions about where the New California Republic was in my head a while. I think I even voiced them on the last episode of where they're a big thing to be absent, to the point I was having to work in my head where we even fall within the lore of where, okay, the Brotherhood is triumphant and very powerful again, particularly on the West Coast. They're talking about the Enclave still. Did we basically just decide to remake Fallout 2? But no, that doesn't work because they've said the timeline is set way in the 2290s, and again, the New California Republic isn't here. And the technology hasn't really progressed. So that doesn't work. And they're talking about, things to do with the East Coast Enclave, which is just Fallout 3 and I think Fallout 4 too. So no, that doesn't work. But if it's truly set, where it is, what's going on with the New California Republic? This should be their territory. We're basically in the boneyard. They're the first true nation state that's emerged in the aftermath of the apocalypse. Their empire stretches across multiple states. I mean, in Fallout 1, I helped Aradesh. It's the heart of the NCR is the city of Shady Sands, and I've got an emotional connection to it because in Fallout 1, I helped Aradesh and Tandy, expand the thing, see it be one of the true self-supporting, self-sustaining cities of the wasteland. In Fallout 2, I saw it was the heart of a nation that had begun to form, that was stretching across states, that was forming alliances, that was building its own states and federations. In New Vegas, it had become the capital of a true empire that was stretching from Mexico to Washington State, all across California and Oregon, over into Nevada, and trying to expand into the Vegas region. It's a city that has electricity, that has running water, that has police and security and growth and life in one of the only cities in the world that wasn't built on the ruins of the old. It was built purposefully in its own location to start fresh, to allow for a rebirth of humanity, and it was succeeding. You and I have talked about that one of the things we like best about a post-apocalyptic setting is the idea of not just, dwelling in the chaos of mankind and seeing the collapse and seeing the violence, but seeing how civilization is reborn, seeing how the lights come back on, both metaphorically and literally, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Shady Sands embodied that. The New California Republic embodied that. It was making something new. People were living in these cities, stretching all across these states, in many cases to the same standards they were in the pre-war. It was part of the reason they got into a conflict with the Brotherhood of Steel. The Brotherhood of Steel, who were heroes in the first game, had started to do a face-heel turn on the subject, rivaling influence, who would direct the new future of mankind. And so, to see it now is just a hole in the ground. To see it just talked about as, oh yeah, they were a thing and, war. It's like, I'll be hyperbolic about this, but imagine if the Tolkien estate licensed a new book to occur in the Lord of the Rings universe. They would never do this, but imagine they did. And as part of that...
I don't know, man. The Tolkien estate's doing some sideways stuff lately. I wouldn't cancel that, right? I wouldn't necessarily write that off.
Valid point. There's been some video games. There's been some TV shows. But let's say as part of that, the characters are walking around through this area and suddenly they come across just a giant hole in the ground. One of the characters turns to the other one and says, hey, what's this? And they says, oh, you've never heard of Minas Tirith? And it's like, what do you mean? It's like, oh yeah, it's just gone. But what about Gondor? All the other cities, Minas, all, the Swan Knights and everything else. Oh, no, they're not around anymore. They're not a thing. It's that level of disruptive to me about, I can't imagine a Fallout setting without that aspect of things. It was the theme and direction they seemed to be going in. I know in Van Buren that talked about, original idea for Fallout 3, there'd been talk of the NCR getting knocked on their heel. I know that some of the writers have talked about they didn't like that the wasteland was starting to fade away from their own writing as the New California Republic was building, and Shady Sands represented a hopeful idea for what the future would bring. And New Vegas went to the idea for the corruption and the problems of the old that would go from respect to that. But for it to just be seemingly just blown up off camera, and particularly for the implication of the Brotherhood being responsible, an organization originally of heroes that were helping rebuild the wasteland that were dedicated to never allowing the kind of nuclear technology that destroyed the world from being involved again. The implication we get so far is that they were the heart and center when this happened. It's even more just jarring to me. It's like, this is the moment of any adaptation where I have to kind of take a breath and accept that this isn't written material. This is new material that is after what occurred. I kind of have to just accept it on its own terms and roll with it. But as a person who's a fan of what's come before, it hits hard to see just so casually something that feels like such a big part of the universe just gone. It leaves me apprehensive that they're not going to earn so massive of a disruption of what the established lore is. But that was my rant. Those are my concerns. It hit me like a truck just to see this occur as just an aspect of the background seemingly occurring. I don't know. How old do we think Maximus is? He looks like 6 or 7 when he was, emerging from that refrigerator.
Maybe 20 years ago. Something like 20 years ago, yeah.
So whoa. Well, I'm have to see where it falls in the lore because like the last date I've got is I think the late 2270s, early 2080s, where I think that's when New Vegas is. So I don't know what will come hereafter, but this has been the most disrupting aspect of the adaptation for me, and it is leaving me to consciously take a breath and judge the show in its own terms and wait and see what comes with respect to this. But this very much falls in the category of okay, you can kill that character, you can destroy that thing, but you better show what the ripple effect of that is, and you better show repercussions from it, because you cannot be casual with so momentous of an action to affect the Fallout world.
Are you listening, Amazon?